of those who still hope for truly limited government diminished and had their concerns ignored these past 22 months during the aftermath of 9/11. Members of Congress were easily influenced to publicly support any domestic policy or foreign military adventure that was supposed to help reduce the threat of a terrorist attack. Believers in limited government were harder to find. Political money, as usual, played a role in pressing Congress into supporting almost any proposal suggested by the neoconservatives. This process, where campaign dollars and lobbying effort affect policy, is hardly the domain of any single party. Unfortunately, is the way of life in Washington. There are many reasons why government continues to grow. It would be naive for anyone to expect otherwise. Since 9/11, protection of privacy, whether medical, personal, or financial, has vanished. Free speech and the Fourth Amendment have been under constant attack. Higher welfare expenditures are endorsed by the leadership of both parties. Policing the world and nation-building issues are popular campaign targets, yet they are now standard operating procedures here in Washington. There's no sign that these programs will be slowed or reversed until either we are stopped by force overseas, which won't be soon, or we go broke and can no longer afford these grandiose plans for a world empire, which will probably come sooner than later. None of this happened by accident or coincidence. Precise philosophic ideas prompted certain individuals to gain influence to implement these plans. The neoconservatives, a name they gave themselves, diligently worked their way into positions of power and influence. They documented their goals, strategy, and moral justification for all they hoped to accomplish. Above all else, they were not and are not conservatives dedicated to limited constitutional government. Neoconservatism has been around for decades and, strangely, has connections to past generations as far back as Machiavelli. Modern-day neoconservatism was introduced to us in the 1960s. It entails both a detailed strategy as well as a philosophy of government. The ideas of Teddy Roosevelt and certainly Woodrow Wilson were quite similar to many of the views of the present-day neocons. Neocon spokesman Max Boot brags that what he advocates is, quote, hard Wilsonianism, close quote. In many ways, there's nothing neo about their views, and certainly nothing conservative. Yet they have been able to co-opt the conservative movement by advertising themselves as a new or modern form of conservatism. More recently, the modern-day neocons have come from the far left, a group historically identified as former Trotskyites. Liberal Christopher Hitchens has just recently joined the neocons, and it has been reported that he has already been to the White House as an ad hoc consultant. Many neocons now in position of influence in Washington can trace their status back to Professor Leo Strauss of the University of Chicago. One of Strauss's books was Thoughts on Machiavelli. This book was not a condemnation of Machiavelli's philosophy. Paul Wolfowitz actually got his PhD under Strauss. Others closely associated with these views are Richard Pearl, Elliott Abrams, Robert Kagan, William Kristol. All are key players in designing our new strategy of preemptive war. Others include Michael Ledeen of the American Enterprise Institute, former CIA Director James Woolsey, Bill Bennett of Book of Virtue fame, Frank Gaffney, Dick Cheney, and Donald Rumsfeld. There are just too many to mention who are philosophically or politically connected to the neocon philosophy in some varying degree. The godfather of modern-day neoconservatism is considered to be Irving Kristol, father of Bill Kristol, who set the stage in 1983 with his publication, Reflections of a Neoconservative. In this book, Kristol also defends the traditional